Good morning, gentlemen. The American consumer naturally is quite concerned when they go to the pump and they pump gas. And what they're concerned about is they see the price of the barrel of oil going up, and they see the price of the gallon of gas that they're pumping go up. And then when that price of the barrel of oil starts coming down, they don't see the commensurate lowering quickly of that price that they're paying per gallon at the pump. And so they notice that back in 2008, that the price shot up to $147 a barrel. And while they're pumping gas, it raises to $4 a gallon. And now they see the price at around $100 a barrel, and they're still paying $4 at the pump. So I want to ask that question on behalf of the American people that are pumping gas in their cars.
Well, it's a question of the supply chain. It takes the average time for crude oil produced overseas to reach American refineries somewhere between 30 days and 45 days. That's the transit time. You have oil that's in inventory at the refinery, which has already been bought and paid for at some price. You have gasoline and products that are in inventory that have already been bought and paid for in some price, which then ultimately are delivered to your local service station, where the consumer pulls up to the pump and buys it. So when the price changes on that raw material of crude oil, that price has to make its way through that whole supply chain. Now, when the price is going up, the retailer who owns the station and operates on a very, very thin cash flow, and the vast majority of service stations are not owned by us, they're owned by individual business owners or distributors. They have to think about what's going to happen to my cash flow as this price moves through. So they do begin to price up in advance of the actual higher cost barrels getting to them in order to ensure they've got sufficient cash flow to buy the next tanker wagon that has to deliver. So that's why going up, as most business people would do that worry about their cash flow, they're going to chase it a little faster on the way up, and coming down, they have to recover the cost of what they've already spent on the barrels in inventory. So until those actual barrels make their way through the system to the pump, the consumer's not going to see it. And typically, that may take somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how big the movement is.
Okay. I anticipated that that would be the answer, and I appreciate that. But the person that's pumping the gas is saying, wait a minute, today I'm paying $4 for a gallon of gas, and oil is selling at $100 a barrel, but 3 years ago I was paying $4 for a gallon of gas, and oil was selling at $147 a barrel. Why?
Well, the $147 price didn't last very long, and you remember what happened shortly after. It plummeted to the 30s. That is the nature, and we talked about this earlier, it is the nature of this commodity which has an extreme amount of volatility in it. Why it moves in that wide a range, we could have an entire hearing on that subject.
And I would say that there's a part to the speculation that adds to that of people that don't use the oil. But Mr. McKay, let me register a difference of opinion with BP. You all, in your financial report in the fourth quarter of last year, announced that the Gulf oil spill response costs were going to be approximately $41 billion, and that you reported a tax credit of almost $12 billion. Now, for activities that cause such harm, does it not seem wrong that you would take as a tax credit, lessening your taxes dollar for dollar, on the payments that you're paying out to make people's lives right?
Let me first just comment that we've pledged all along to meet every commitment under the law with the accident and the economic impacts of the accident. The $41 billion is a financial charge. We did not take a $12 billion credit. We will be following the law, following the tax code in terms of writing off standard business expenses as they occur,
So you
as they're dispersed.
consider these as standard business expenses that you think that morally you're entitled to take as a tax credit?
The ones that are under the tax code as standard business expenses, yes, and we will not write off things that are not under the standard business expenses.
You know, it's interesting that the Boeing company, when they had those kind of payments, they didn't take them as a tax credit. It was also, what was the other company? Goldman Sachs, same thing. They did not, because of the sensitivity, the wrongdoing that occurred. Surely the Gulf oil spill was as a result of wrongdoing, and yet you want to claim that as a tax credit. Now, I just want you to know that I respectfully disagree with your position, and I would urge the chairman and the ranking member to consider, he may be entitled to this under the law, but that doesn't make it right. And I would ask respectively to the chairman that we consider changing the law to follow the example set by Boeing and Goldman Sachs.
Well, Senator, we certainly will consider it. And we'll consider any request made by any senator, especially a senator from Florida. We finished question? Yeah. Next is Senator Carper.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.